Hi and welcome to Revive Online. This is Jason, I'm Katie, and we are so happy you have joined us.
Just want to take a moment to thank you for joining us from wherever you're from around the world. We're so pleased to have you with us today. We actually believe that God has a plan and a purpose for your life. And so as you listen to the message today, we pray it blesses you and changes your life from the inside out. If you haven't taken a moment, go ahead and like and subscribe to the channel so you can stay up to date with all the content coming out of our church. We pray that this message blesses you today.
You know, it's been last week and this week. This is our Beyond offering, and this is the Sundays that we've been focusing on for quite a few weeks. And for those that are visitors, or if you've been coming the last few weeks, you realize that we've been talking about generations, we've been talking about money, we've been talking about giving, we've been talking about how to handle our finance. And this is sort of our season that we give good teaching on generosity and giving and the purpose that we're giving for, and generations is our real focus. And so I'm hoping that this morning I can really add to just the wealth of just inspiration that our speakers have been giving. And I really hope that God touches hearts today. And I want to lay a foundation before I get to a story in the Bible. A number of years ago, our church used to run a program called Royal Rangers. Are there any Rangers in the house? Okay, Royal Rangers, okay. And so that was an outdoors scouting style program. And in fact, Edna Speechley with her husband Keith, Edna's sitting back there, and so she and her husband Keith used to run the program quite often for a number of years in our church. And have you ever seen those survivor programs on TV and sort of you see different people? Don't let Edna's age fool you. She'd be one of the first people I would pick on my team if I was in a survivor situation. She knows stuff. And so one of the things that she and her husband taught me was orienteering. And that's where you get a map and a compass and you somehow work your way through the Australian bush. And so I know that we've got our little smartphones and we've got our map apps, but imagine being in an area where your map apps don't work, and so the old school, get out a map and compass and being able to use a compass and to be able to navigate your way through. And so one of the tricks, or the most important trick if you're orienteering, is when you get the compass, you don't walk with the compass. You can't walk a straight line through the Australian bush. With rocks, you'll get damaged. So what you do is you hold the compass and you look way in the distance and you mark out something that you can recognize and you go, right, that's where I need to end up. And so you set your goal, you set your target once you've worked out from the map which way you need to go. And so you set that target. And the whole idea then is while you're walking through the Australian bush and you're going down the rocks and you're navigating all around the place and you're trying to cross creeks or whatever, all you have to keep doing is look up and see the target. And it doesn't matter how you've had to walk or what you've had to go around, you are going to get to the place and you're not going to get lost. So that's, thank you, Auntie Edna, for teaching me that skill. And so, the point of orienteering is to identify the target, to have the goal in mind. And it's very important that we understand that God has one major goal for your life. Of all the things that Christianity can talk about, there's one goal that He has for you and for me. And Christianity can sort of confuse us at times. There's what does the Bible expect from us? And what should we be doing in this area? And we have troubles sometimes that we go through and hardships. And we're sort of confused. We go through suffering times and we're going, God, aren't you meant to protect me from all of this? And so we get a bit confused. And then there's all these additional things that the Bible wants me to forgive those that have hurt me. And it wants me to, love those that are not worthy of love. And so there's things that the Bible's asking, and it's so many things. But it's like sort of going through the terrain. Keep your eyes on the one major goal that he's got for your life. And so, when we talk even about generosity and giving, that's one of the things that make up Christianity. It's very important, but if you don't teach in line with that major goal, then it's like, what am I meant to do? There's so many things and so many disciplines and all this different stuff. And so I actually want to tell you in a moment what that goal is, but I want to talk about generosity in light of that goal. And so of the many things that we're talking about, this is our last Sermon in the Beyond series, and I want to talk about our generosity in the light of understanding what's the goal that God's got for us. What's the one non-negotiable thing that is really, really important to him? And so, let's be clear. God doesn't need your money. And yet, he wants us to give to things which are his idea and his initiative. Why does he insist on us parting with our finance when we know he can do anything he wants? He doesn't need anything from us. God has no needs. And so if we present something as though, look, God really needs your help on this thing, it's like, no, he has no needs. Yet, it's really important for him when he says, I want you to be generous. And it's like, it can be one of those many, many things, unforgiveness and loving and serving and giving. And we see this variety of things. And sometimes Christians, they sort of tick the boxes of the things that they want to, work on in their life. Sort of like the Bible's got all these add-ons, sort of, do you want to be a giver? Well, then tick that box. If you want to be someone that has hospitality, and it's like, no, it's not a tick the box thing. There's a goal. And all these things are part of him working towards a goal for your life. And so, the clearest understanding, when you go, I'm going through hard times. God, why? I'm suffering at the moment. Why? You're asking this of me. You're in my relationship with people. You're challenging me to do this. You're asking, I'm now, in Revived Church, and they're talking about giving and generosity. And it's like, why? What's the purpose of all this? Galatians 4:19 gives us the key to what his goal is. Paul was talking, he said, my dear children, for whom I am again in the pains of childbirth, until Christ is formed in you. If we just brought Christianity down to one thing, letting Jesus Christ be formed within us, it makes sense of everything that we go through. God allows things into our life so that we can wean off our reactions and we can let Christ be formed in us. He wants to make you just like his son. And so all these areas falls in line with that one goal. God's goal for you is to reproduce his son in your life. And so that everything that God does or allows in your life is for that goal, to make you more like his son. So we need to understand God is going to use circumstances and challenges to achieve his goal. Galatians 2:20 says, I have been crucified with Christ, and it is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself up for me. God's goal for you is for you to be more Christ-like in every area of your life, to mirror his values in how you live, to respond to situations as he would. So this is why we go through tough times and things that we don't understand. He's weaning you off your fleshly reactions and going, what would Christ do in this situation? And that's how he wants us to be able to respond. Ephesians 4 tells us that we need to put off the old self, our former nature, so that God can achieve this purpose. Ephesians 4:24 says, put on the new nature, created to be like God. See that Christ-likeness? That Christ being formed. Put on the new nature, created to be like God, truly righteous and holy. That's what he wants for us. That we would, our new nature, everything God does is moving us towards being more godly in how we deal with stuff. Is that okay? Would you agree? Okay, cool. So God uses giving and generosity as a means to make us more Christ-like. So that's just one of the many things. And so I want to have a look at generosity and giving. And I want to, sometimes God gets a bit of bad press when it comes to, or church, when he puts on lead pastors' hearts. Come on, we're going to raise $300,000 for the generations. And that's a God thing that's been put on their heart. And sometimes, it's presented and it doesn't feel like a God thing. It just feels like, oh, hey, they go talking about money again. That's why I love this church. We don't go on about money. We don't do offering talks or anything. I'm not saying anything wrong with it, but we just don't want people to feel that they're being manipulated or that we're just on about money. And so you just happen to be in a season where we take seriously that we should be teaching about money. You should be happy that Jesus is not your lead pastor. Probably every fourth sermon would be about money. And so I think... well, maybe we should be like Jesus and teach on money every fourth sermon. Okay, maybe I need to step back out of that one. Okay. Anyway, it's not my decision. It's theirs. Okay. And so you've got a God that doesn't have a need. He needs nothing. He owns everything, yet he asks us to finance his projects. He challenges us to give even during the times where we feel we have so little to give. Don't you hate it when God talks to you and you go, this is the bad time? Oh, there's a little bit of the Christ forming taking place within us. I like the story of a farmer. He had cornfields and he had sons and they would go to school every day and on Saturday he would work those sons in the cornfields. And all the friends used to go down on Saturday, take time off and go down to the water hole, but not these sons. They had to work on Saturday in the fields. And someone came to the father and said, come on, you are so well off. Give these boys a break. You don't need all this corn. And this father said, I'm not raising corn. I'm raising sons. We need to understand that sometimes those hard lessons, he's raising us. He's doing something in us. Those calls at times that we feel, this is tough. God, this is what you're asking me to do. I can't do. But the answer he wants to hear is, yes, but could Jesus in you do this? Because that's his aim, that Christ is formed. And so those tough times, when bad things happen to good people and we don't understand why, it could just be a Christ-forming moment. And that's why. And he allows it and he lets it because he's doing something that is his goal and his target for your life, that Christ would be formed in you. And so, in a moment, I'm going to turn to a story in the Bible where God comes up with a brilliant idea. God gives Moses very specific plans to build a movable tabernacle while they are traveling through the wilderness. The plans were elaborate, they were detailed, and it would end up being a very, very expensive project. This was totally God's initiative. It was not something Moses came up with. It was not something the people came up with. This was God. And so God comes up with this idea, comes up with the plans, and then slides the bill over to the people and say, you'll be doing all the work and you'll be providing all the contributions. Like, seriously? Look, we had a situation like that. My wife and I, my wife's parents, and Jason and Katie will remember this, my wife's parents invited all our family to a dinner. And they were going to pay. And so while the dinner's on, they're saying, order whatever you want. Drink whatever you want. It's fine. And so it was very generous because Tracy and I were there. Jason, Katie and the kids. Joey and Hannah. Hannah, my daughter, was down from the Gold Coast and her kids. So there's a whole pile of us at this restaurant. They chose the restaurant. We were encouraged to grab whatever we wanted to eat, to drink whatever we wanted to drink. And so when it came time to pay the bill, Tracy and I accompanied the father to where the cashier is because he can be a little bit disoriented at times. So we're saying, come on, come. And so he pulls out his wallet and he's holding a couple of credit cards. And it's like he was just frozen to the spot. And Tracy and I were looking going, what's going on? Like, hand over the card. Give the card. Like, that's how we do this. And so Tracy just looks at me and whispers, get out your card and just pay for it. So I get out my wallet, get out my card, pay for the whole extravagant and wonderful idea of theirs. But what was really funny is that Tracy and I, we then come back with the father to the table. Other people don't know what just happened. And they're saying, oh, thank you so much for your generosity. Thank you. They're talking to the father and to his wife. Thank you so much. You are just so generous. And Tracy and I looked because he was receiving it all. Going, no worries, no problem. And no, it's wonderful. And it's like, we paid the bill. We never got reimbursed, by the way. I'm just saying, it's like this. God comes up with these great ideas and then he says, and guess what? You're financing it. We go, hold on a second. It's your idea. You've got a lot more than I've got. And yet he slides the bill over to us. And so it just doesn't make sense. Unless you've got this goal in mind and you go, you know what? This is good for us because he's forming. In fact, in this story, you'll see he draws a response out of the people, which is just amazing. And so God's going to give us opportunities to be generous, just like the story I'm just going to read now. Exodus 35, verse 4 to 5 and verse 10. Moses spoke to all the congregation of the sons of Israel, saying, this is the thing which the Lord has commanded, saying, take from among you a contribution to the Lord. Now listen to this. Whoever is of a willing heart is to bring it as the Lord's contribution. Gold, silver, and bronze. Have every skillful person among you come and make all that the Lord has commanded. And so Moses is saying, come on, you're paying for it, and also the workers are going to be supplied from you. But God goes, you know what? I only want willing hearts to contribute. I only want those that are willing. Exodus 35, verse 20 to 22. Then all the congregation of the sons of Israel departed from Moses' presence, and everyone whose heart stirred him, and everyone whose spirit moved him, came and brought the Lord's contribution for the work of the tents of meeting, for all its service, and for the holy garments. Then those whose hearts moved them. Can you hear? It's sort of like spirits moving them. The hearts are being moved. Something spiritual is happening. Something supernatural is taking place. Then all whose hearts moved them, both men and women, came and brought brooches and earrings and signet rings and bracelets, all articles of gold. So did everyone who presented an offering of gold to the Lord. We go to now Exodus 36. We read from verse 2 to verse 7. Then Moses called Bezalel and Aholiab, and every skillful person in whom the Lord had put skill, everyone whose heart stirred him to come to the work to perform it. They received from Moses every contribution which the sons of Israel had brought to perform the work in the construction of the sanctuary. And they still continued bringing to him voluntary offerings every morning. So the giving process is happening. Every morning, people are bringing more. Everyone whose heart was willing, whose heart was stirred, and they were giving. And so the next bit we're going to read, the workers that were doing the work, they all had to stop work. They all downed tools And they all went to Moses, and this is what happened. And all the skillful people who were performing all the work of the sanctuary came, each from the work which they were performing. And they said to Moses, the people are bringing much more than enough for the construction work which the Lord commanded us to perform. So Moses issued a command and circulated a proclamation throughout the camp saying, no man or woman is to perform work any longer for the contributions of the sanctuary. So the people were restrained from bringing any more. I've called this sermon Willing Hearts. Now this is the passage that every lead pastor dreams about. To stand up on a Sunday in the middle of a giving program and go, look, I'm begging you, stop giving. We've got more than enough. Now, I've been in this church 63 years. My ears have never heard that from the platform. In all the things that we've ever been able to give to and had the privilege of being part of, I've never heard a minister ever say, stop, I'm begging you, please stop giving money. We've got more than enough. Has anyone ever been in a church where you've heard that? Okay, we got close. I reckon 2 years ago, when we were wiping out the church debt, we got very close. In fact, we almost wiped out the debts, and we just had to add a little bit from our general fund to wipe it out. We got that close to being able to say, job done. Please stop. But I've never heard those words. Should we have another mic? Is that okay? Can I keep going? Okay. All right. So I want to have a look and try and understand this exuberant giving that was taking place. What was really going on? What was happening? Is there something that I can learn from this passage? Is there something that we can glean? Is there something that can bring change to us? Is there something that God wants to draw out from us from this passage? I've got a point there just behind me. God's opportunities to be generous also reveal the condition of our hearts. This project was to be funded by a free will offering, totally voluntary. Now, there are times when God commands you to give. Now, in the Old Testament, you were commanded to give first fruits offering, or a tithe, 10%. You were commanded. In fact, back then in the Old Testament, if you did not give the tithe, God in Malachi said, you know how I see this? You are robbing from me. So that's pretty strong. God's going, when you hold money that belongs to me, you are robbing me. So that's how strongly he was wording it. But this wasn't a commanded offering. This was a free will offering. Like our Beyond offering. It's free will. We can't force anyone to give. In fact, God said, hey, I only want willing hearts to be part of this. And so you've got to understand that why you give is a lot more important than what you give. God's more interested in your motive than your money. He doesn't need your money. He can do whatever he wants, but you need to release your money because it's good for you. He's growing you. He's developing you. He's doing something. You need to give. But he doesn't need what you're giving. Isn't that amazing? We need it. We want to achieve something. We want to do something with the generations. And so it's interesting that this God that owns everything is going, yeah, but you need to give. And so in 2 Corinthians 9, 7 to 8, it says, each of you should give what you have decided in your heart to give, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And so this Beyond offering that we collected last week and this week, and which we still haven't achieved the goal, and that's why we're not standing here saying, stop, don't give anymore. That's definitely not the message today, okay? It's God's doing more work in your life. Okay, so they were restrained from giving further. That word restrained means being held back and restricted. They wanted to even keep giving even though the target was reached. Something happened and they're going, you know what, it's not even about the target, It's about, I want to give to the Lord, and they had to be restrained. They had to be held back in a sense. Commanded, you are not to give anymore. They didn't go, oh, we reached the target, fine. They go, no. I want to give. I want to give. It's not about the amount. I've got a willing heart. Something's changed. Something's happened. I want to give. I want to know what's going on in their mind. What is going on that even when they more than reached the target, they still had to be restrained and commanded not to give further? Wow. Wouldn't you love to pastor a church like that? Amazing. So they were giving not only of the resources, but of their skills. Bezalel and Aholiab were two especially gifted people to assist in the work of the tabernacle. God gave them the skill to do the work. Do you know I met Bezalel and Aholiab last week? Not these guys. Our Bezalel and Aholiab. I found them in the rooms over there, where we're pulling walls down for the kids area, and they're going around, they're taking pictures. And they're walking around, they're in this section here. And so it's like, when I was talking with them, I'm going, what are you doing? And they started to just share what they were seeing. We could do this, and if we had this, and then they pulled out their phones and they're showing what they've done in the past. And I get this week, I'm getting messages on my phone. Oh, look at these colors, and look at this, and look at the other. And it's like, wow, we're going to get this job done by the finance, but also by the resources and the talents. And so it was just so encouraging to meet Bezalel and Aholiab and to hear what they were thinking. And it's like, wow, this is actually going to be better than I could have imagined it to be. And so very, very exciting. And so it's times like this that God does an amazing work in our hearts and in our lives in forming Christ. Now, I want to talk about your generosity. God provides you with your generous contribution. He provides it to you. Exodus 35:22, they came and brought brooches and earrings, signet rings and bracelets, all articles of gold. My question is, when you've been a slave for 430 years, where did you get this stuff from? This wasn't their stuff. And so you'll realize that when they were leaving Egypt, all the Egyptian neighbors wanting to get rid of them said, hey, take this gold, take whatever, just get out. So God gave them favor with the Egyptians. God gave them what they were going to contribute. God graces them with everything that they needed to be able to give and to respond. Music's playing. That's a little bit nervous at this moment. I hope your fingers don't bleed by the time I finish. And so I'll keep moving. Thanks, Jess. And so even the skilled workers, it said that they received their ability from God. It says that very clearly. So you've got to understand that when it came to what they were contributing, God actually gave it to them. Whatever they were putting in the offering bucket or whatever work they were doing, they couldn't say, hey, look at me. Everything that they were putting in already had the fingerprints of God on it. You can't give God anything that He already hasn't given you in advance. And so God's thinking, I'm going to need this. And so rather than Him somehow store it or whatever, He puts His contribution into the hands of all the people. Everyone had something they could give. And so when it came to, okay, we're going to take up this offering, everyone had already been given something that they could now give. Amazing. So when we sort of get a little bit agitated and God, you own everything, and you know I don't have a lot, and here you are asking me for something. I'm asking you, take another look and you'll see the fingerprints of God are on stuff that's in your wallet or in your home or in your hands and your ability. The fingerprints of God is on it. And so we need to understand God's not asking you to give something of yours. He's just saying, will you return to me what I've already given you for this contribution? will you pass it back to me? I put it in your care. Now will you pass it back because I need it? It says in 2 Corinthians 9, 10 to 11, for God is the one who provides seed for the farmer and then bread to eat. In the same way, he will provide and increase your resources and then produce a great harvest of generosity in you. See, he wants to do something. So he's blessing you, he gives you, he wants to bring that harvest of generosity. Yes, you will be enriched in every way so that you can always be generous. And when we take your gifts to those who need them, they will thank God. The Bible's telling us that God has already given. It says in 2 Corinthians 9:8, and God will generously provide all you need. Then you will always have everything you need and plenty left over to share with others. That's our God. And so when he says, hey, I've got a great idea, all he's asking is, listen, that which I've entrusted to you, now's the time. Now's the time. That which I've given you, come on, now we're going to say, he lets us all be part of what he's doing. He lets us participate in it. Everyone's got something that they can give. Everyone's got something that they can do because that's how he works. And as we give and as we return, a little bit more of Christ is being formed in us. He wants us to be like his son. Can you imagine how generous Jesus is? When he was rich, he became poor for us. And God goes, I love that. I want to see it in you. I want to see that generosity in you. But he doesn't sort of put a demand on us. He goes, just recognize I've given you what I'm asking for back. I've blessed you already. I've given it to you so that as you give it back, a work's happening in your life. God is very kind. So God is their provider. He initiates all of this. And so, but what is it that released this incredible willingness to give? There's something more. With your generosity, God's grace will release your generosity. What do I mean by that? What motivated these people so much? What was happening in their heart that they said, please let me give more, please. There's more I want to give. We've got to go back a few chapters. They were using their earrings and the brooches. They made a golden calf, if you remember, while Moses was up on Mount Sinai. They were using their stuff for idol worship. And then God's having a conversation with Moses and he says, Moses, I want to destroy these people. I'm going to wipe them all out, and in you, I'm going to start a new people. That's what God was saying to Moses. I'm sick of these people. I'm going to wipe them out. I'm going to destroy them. And Moses is interceding, saying, God, don't do that. Don't do that. And then God comes up with another plan. He says, I'll tell you what, I'll send my angel with them. I won't go. And I'll give them all the victories, but my angel will go with them. And that's where Moses goes. Unless your presence comes. We don't want this without your presence. And so, the children of Israel, Exodus 33 verse 4 to 5, when the people heard these distressing words, they began to mourn. No one put on any ornaments, for the Lord had said to Moses, tell the Israelites, you are a stiff-necked people. If I were to go with you even for a moment, I might destroy you. Now take off your ornaments and I will decide what to do with you. And so they knew we are outside God's good books. We've blown it. We at any moment could be destroyed. At any moment, God can do something, and rightfully so. But then they hear that God will now choose to tabernacle himself with the people. And he goes, I will be with you. I will make a tabernacle and I will dwell with you and I will go with you. And he says, I only want willing people to be part of this. And I tell you what, they thought they were under death sentence, and they're going, God is going to be with us. And they're pulling out their wallets, and they're pulling off their earrings, and they're saying, we want to give. This is what we want. This is what we want. We want him amongst us. And the grace of God does that when we realize that we were on our way to hell. That if it wasn't for Jesus' wonderful generosity, like, where would we be? And so God's grace and his generosity to us just opens something in our hearts, and there's willing hearts. So yeah, we got people in this congregation that when they hear of, hey, we're going to raise money for this, they grab the wallet and they're part of it because they go, God, you are so good to us that this is just returning what you've already given. They're willing hearts because they appreciated that they once were lost. Now they're found. They were without God and alienated, but now they're children of God, sons of God. And I tell you what, it does something to your heart. It does something to you. And I think sometimes when we get stingy in church, or we get annoyed that we're going through another hard time, we've forgotten that his goal is to form Christ. And sometimes we forget how much he's really done for us. He has given so much and he asks for so little in comparison. And so I'm bringing this to a close. Your generosity, God will even give you not only your contribution, not only does he grace you so that it stirs something in your heart, he'll even give you the desire and the power to do the right thing. You might be sitting here going, look, I'm not a giver, don't like it. God can even give you the desire to have a willing heart. And maybe this morning you just got to go, God, I don't give. I'm not part of this. Or if I do, throw a couple of coins in the bag that goes by. But God, I want to be a willing heart. I want to be impacted. I want to be able to have the eyes to see that which you've placed already in my care for purposes such as this. We just need the eyes to see what's the Lord's contribution that he has entrusted to you that he's now saying, come on, pass it on. Open your eyes. What has God given? Don't give a donation. Give the Lord's contribution. And that's what it says, that they gave the Lord's contribution. Look, I'm bringing this to a close. Philippians 2:12-13 says, work hard to show the results of your salvation, obeying God with deep reverence and fear, for God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases him. So bringing this all together, I'm going to leave you with a challenge, and we're going to have the worship team. They're going to lead us before Pastor Jason eventually comes up. I think there's two questions that we've got to be willing to answer to God. This isn't in the Bible. I'm just saying, I reckon there's two things that I need to have an answer. One is, how will I respond when he says, what did you do with my son? What did you do with my son? How did I allow that to change my life and affect me? But the second question is, what did you do with my stuff? The stuff I gave you. What did you do with it? Because I don't really care whether people believe in tithing or not tithing, or giving or not giving, or whatever. I'm telling you what I believe. God has given you something, and it's meant to be for generosity. For everyone. Everyone. We're here to contribute. Everyone. And he's given it. But you know what? It's only willing hearts that he wants. If you feel that this talk has somehow put pressure on you, don't give. God doesn't want your money. He wants Christ formed in you. He doesn't want your donation. He wants you to return his contribution that he's placed in your hand. This is the time for returning it. God supplies you with his contribution. He inspires you to contribute by the amazing things He's done in our life, and He also gives you the desire and the power to follow through. Why don't we stand together? Worship team, why don't you lead us this morning?
Thank you so much for joining us today. We really hope that message blessed you.
And we would love to connect with you. So wherever you are in the world, make sure you head to our website or follow some of the links in the description below. We would love to connect with you. We really believe that doing life in community is better than anything else. So make sure you go ahead and do that. If you want to partner with us to help get the message of Jesus out around the world, you can give. And so you can also head to the website or check out the links below. We would love to partner with you. Thank you so much for watching today. We pray this message changed your life.